Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another edition of Ask Dr. Dansinger with Dr. Michael Dansinger. He is the founder of Diabetes Reversal Partners. If you are in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, or Florida and on Medicare, you might qualify to actually get his help in reversing your type 2 diabetes. So it's worth checking out. And you can check out his website. Dr. Danziger, what's your website? Diabetes Reversal
MichaelDansingerMD.com.
and Diabetes Reversal Partners, I think, .com as well.
DiabetesReversalPartners.com. That's right.
Two ways to get a hold of him. And also a third, make sure you like this video, subscribe to his channel at Ask Michael Danziger, MD. So make sure if you like this content and you want more of it, he is live every single week, just about, and he has great content such as this that will help you reverse your diabetes. But remember, the advice and views offered are that of Dr. Danziger and, of course, my opinions as well. So always check with your healthcare team and get explicit consent before following any information or advice offered in this video. Today, we are talking about beef tallow. If you've never heard of it, you haven't been watching the news or online at all in the past few weeks because RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he is the head of Health and Human Services, and he has made a big statement about wanting fast food chains to use beef tallow versus canola oil and seed oils and all of that jazz, saying that it's healthier. We're not saying healthy. Healthier does not mean healthy. And that's what we're going to dive into here. Dr. Danzinger, I see you cringing right now. And our conversation prior to this was very powerful. You have very strong opinions about beef tallow and what's happening. And you want to make it clear to everyone in this broadcast that, again, healthier does not mean healthy, right?
That's right, Kim. Yeah, so it seems like beef tallow might be on the rise. And what is beef tallow? So it's rendered fat from a cow. So mainly fat from the internal organ near, the abdominal fat of a cow. And I wish it was healthy because it's delicious, but it's not. Even if you use grass-fed cows, the fat of a grass-fed cow, although it's not as obnoxious as fat from regular cattle, it's still not healthy, which is a shame. It would be nice if this was true, but it's not true. And I think, 99% of educated, trained nutrition scientists who care about what's true would agree that beef tallow is should not be on the rise.
It does have a few health benefits, but fat is fat is fat is fat.
So
And right?
about a third of the calories that people eat comes from fat. And fat is complicated. There's different types of fat in our diet. We're mainly concerned about the saturated fat, which is about a third of the calories. What we want is fat from monounsaturated.
Yeah.
That's also known as omega-9. We want polyunsaturated fats, which are omega-6s and omega-3s, and that's about 15% of our diet. And we want as much of those omega-6s, or we want as much of those polyunsaturated fats to come from omega-3 rather than omega-6. But the main concern with beef tallow is the saturated fats. And most of the fat in the beef tallow is unhealthy. And when I say unhealthy, it promotes disease in the arteries, it promotes diabetes, it promotes obesity, it's got a lot of calories. So it's something, in general, the fat from meat and dairy is a problem.
And even the Mayo Clinic says, yes, tallow contains the mono unsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, which are considered healthier. They are really concerned still, as you suggested, about these saturated fats as well because of the harmful effects. They say that in small amounts, it's not harmful, but they also suggest it might be, and we're not saying healthier, it's less harmful, maybe, than the seed oils or the current oils that are being used in fried foods.
I think most nutrition scientists would laugh at the idea that beef tallow, even the healthier, relatively less obnoxious beef tallow
Well,
from
that's obnoxious.
grass-fed cows, could hold a candle to seed oils. Now, seed oils have their pros and cons, and some are better than others. But yeah, I don't think there's any seed oil that's gonna be worse than tallow. So so no, that the evidence just doesn't point to the idea that we should replace seed oil in our fryers with beef tallow. So we shouldn't be really eating deep fried stuff anyway, except maybe as a special occasion treat. I mean, who doesn't like French fries? And I will acknowledge that the beef, French fries fried in beef tallow are going to be crispier and taste better than most of the fries that we're getting now. But that that's still an unhealthy indulgence. So
I mean, there's
there,
still some that say that there are some fat soluble nutrients in beef tallow. But overall, I mean, if you're looking at beef tallow and trying to use it to justify eating fried foods, it's not worth the justification. And I think one of the things that I was just reading a clinical study that was talking about the seed oils, and they were saying that they're the fast food restaurants that are using the seed oils, which is why that they are looking at beef tallow as being more natural versus processed, is one of the reasons they're saying it's healthier, because the seed oils that these low cost fast food restaurants are using are actually highly processed oils, where they're even using chemicals to expel the oil from the items, whatever vegetables or seeds they're using to make the oil. And they say that makes it more dangerous. But the thing that you're saying is, no matter what, okay, everything in moderation. We do love our French fries. We do love our fried chicken every once in a while, but everything in moderation, and don't use beef tallow and the switch to beef tallow to justify your indulgence once in a while.
yeah, that's absolutely matches my viewpoint. So oils, some oils are better than others. So olive oil's the best, and then there's a lot of controversy about other oils. But so I am concerned about cottonseed oil, which has saturated fats, and especially palm oil, which is not a seed oil, but comes from palm. And the main concerns with those oils is they do have saturated fats in them, even though they're from vegetarian sources. So, and oils like corn and soybean are very popular, and those are oils that come from GMO foods, and we had a whole episode about that. And it's not it so when those oils go rancid, it's a big problem. And some of the oils that, corn and soybean are very common to be found in the fryers. And if they don't change the oil, then it goes rancid, and that's a problem. Uh, so seed oils that are used in the, oils of different sorts that are used in the fryers are not healthy necessarily, but replacing them with beef tallow takes it in the wrong direction.
So you like high smoke point, first harvest, hand picked. extra virgin olive oil. Still number one, hands down. If you're going to cook with anything and you don't want to, cook with some vegetable stock, then, extra virgin olive oil that has a high smoke point is probably your top pick.
Oh, absolutely. So olive oil in general is the healthiest oil. And the extra virgin olive oil, especially high quality, is even better. And as long as it's from a reputable source and it's true, high quality olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, that's the best. And you can do all sorts of things with that except put in the deep fryer. So you can saute with it and
He
it's
just
fine.
doesn't want you frying anything.
Yeah, so I mean, it, it it's a great oil. Some people would complain, well, for some preparations, it's not a neutral tasting oil. So, avocado oil would be another alternative healthy oil that does not taste like avocados. It has a neutral flavor. So that would be, probably a second choice for neutral cooking. And then canola oil is probably not so bad. I think it's getting a bad rep because it is from GMO seeds, but canola oil has a good amount of omega 3s in there compared to other types of oils.
The problem that we have is that it's sitting on store shelves, and most that's available is rancid by the time you actually bring it home. And I think that's one of the great considerations when it comes to that particular oil. But also we see that across the board with I went to an olive oil shop over the weekend, and he gave me a smell test for the different olive oils. And he said, "Well, smell this olive oil." I closed my eyes and I smelled the olive oil and I was like, "Oh yeah, wow, that smells like olive oil." I mean, it's pungent. It's what you would normally get when you would get the canola or the extra virgin off the store shelves. And he said, "Surprise, that is actually rancid olive oil." And I said, "But that smells like everything else that you would get off the store shelves." And he says, "Let me show you why." And you go to the back and you look at the date in which the olives were processed, and by the time it was bottled and made it to the store shelves, it's like years down the road. And then they're telling you that by its best buy, and it's 2 years from the date it hits the store shelves. And so it's just not doing your body any good. And it's actually, according to a couple of the clinical experts from UC Davis and UCLA, that it's harmful. That type of oil is literally what's giving all oils a bad rep. And in fact, Dean Ornish, who wrote the Dean Ornish cardiovascular reversal, heart disease reversal program, he's even backed off a little bit on saying absolutely no oils, because he admits that when he was doing the study, it was just based on the readily available oils that are on store shelves, which are likely rancid. And I'm going to get a bunch of hate mail from all the supermarkets right now, Dr. Dansinger, but better me than you, right? Um, but it's the truth. And people need to be very conscientious when they're shopping. And if there's one area that you don't want to cut corners on, wouldn't you agree? The oil you use is so important.
Yeah, the good quality olive oil is the best for heart health and it's delicate. And so you lose some of those health properties as it ages.
And we have Douglas that has a question for you. It's actually a pretty good question he wrote here in chat. But Douglas, do you want to ask Dr. Dansinger your question yourself?
Yeah, so if it's that bad and what you're saying makes absolute sense, why then are they what do they not know that you know, or what is the difference between their thinking in that process and what you're explaining to us today about it?
Yeah, so why would someone even think that beef tallow is okay? Um, so it is true, it is possible for well-meaning people to be passionate about mistaken conclusions. I think all of us in our lives have believed something to be true and then later realize, oh, maybe that wasn't as true. And so I'm not going to say that the anyone's love affair with beef tallow is necessarily that they're trying to spread incorrect lies. I'm going to say that it's from putting belief in experts who don't have it right, or wishful thinking. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if beef tallow was healthy? And I think it comes from an exaggerated concern about seed oils, because some of them are from genetically modified, and grass-fed cows are better than grain-fed cows, but still, to nutrition science has subtleties, and I spent 3 years in a nutrition research training fellowship so that I could understand the medical literature and get a sense for what data exist in support of all the different conclusions that we have. And not everyone can be a nutrition scientist. We're still learning, but so I'm not going to necessarily say that some of the fake news is malicious, but I think we've all seen exaggerated headlines that exist, and
But do you think that it's literally just is it RFK and team saying that beef tallow is necessarily healthy, or are they saying that we got to get back to pure ingredients, and these fast food restaurants are not going to get a high quality olive oil. They probably would get the more rancid olive oil, because it is at lower cost, because they're selling French fries at a lower cost than you would get in a higher end restaurant, of course, with maybe a higher end oil, or what you would do at home. But I think that we do overall need to get back to pure ingredients. Mark Hyman, who is an influencer as well in nutrition, put out something just recently talking about even our cereals, everything we eat, everything that's been processed per se, it used to actually have pure ingredients. So whereas our grandparents are all living, into their 80s and 90s at some point, and they ate all this stuff, um, we're seeing our kids getting diabetes sooner. We're seeing kids when they're 18 to 27-year-old, they're presenting in emergency rooms in advanced stage peripheral artery disease known as CLI, critical limb ischemia, with their legs on deck for amputation because of diabetes from when they were a teen, because of what they're eating, which to me doesn't seem any different than what I was eating. But back then, maybe what I was eating, they had pure ingredients, and they just don't tell you. It's the same product, it tastes the same, but they're using more processed ingredients, colors, flavorings, things like that.
yes,
Is
we're all
that right?
concerned about all the processed and ultra processed foods out there, and so yeah, maybe part of the rationale behind going back to beef tallow is along those lines.
It could be. It could be. We're still not going to get you to endorse it at
Oh,
all,
no, no,
even
no.
one
That
iota. So if you're looking for
no.
that here, you're not going to get it. But he did say, you heard him say that if you want a couple French fries, you can have a couple French fries. Just don't make it a habit. But we have a question that is coming in on our Facebook chat. And someone is saying that it seems like you're really against meat, which I don't think you're against meat at all. But she's curious about the carnivore diet as an elimination diet. She says since the carnivore diet removes the plant-based foods, it removes all the potential offenders, such as lectins and oxalates and alkaloids. Boy, she has all kinds of these written in here. What are your thoughts about the carnivore diet as an elimination diet for those with autoimmune conditions?
Such a great question. I'm really glad you asked that question because let me clarify that although I am very concerned about animal fat from meat and dairy, I wouldn't go so far as to say I've got such a big problem with meat. Now, I'll also say, I really respect a vegetarian or a pescatarian diet, but I'm confident that lean proteins, including red meat from beef and pork or poultry, um, can actually be heart healthy for many of us. But the key is lean. And so when eating meat, it lean meat is going to work better for health than fatty meats because of the saturated fat. Another thing I like about lean meat is it helps replace sugar and starch from the diet. And so, an eating plan that's like Atkins or carnivore can actually be pretty favorable. And I'll bet no one's proven whether an Atkins or keto or carnivore diet can reverse heart disease or not, but it can have favorable effects on cholesterol and all the things we measure in the blood. And so, when it's used to help someone reduce their carbohydrate, especially refined sugars and starch, it can be a very effective eating strategy for all sorts of cardiovascular risk factors. So I'll say that. Now, as an elimination diet, there are many different ways to create an elimination diet. The key with an elimination diet is you really dramatically narrow the types of foods that you're eating. And so a carnivore eating style might be a very good way to do that, especially when you're eating foods with one ingredient.
Yeah, that's true. I was actually suggested to go into doing an elimination diet as well. So it's interesting that you brought that up today. I don't know that I could sit there and have ground lean bison every day for 3 meals a day for a month, but some people have done it and they claim that it really got rid of their autoimmune condition symptoms. So you never know. But it's really important to work with your own uh, healthcare team, get a dietitian, find someone that can work with you on this and find the best fit for your presentation of disease and your specific situation. I want to throw it out there to the live studio audience as well, because I see we have Heinz on here, and that's probably music to Heinz's ears because he's not one to like vegetables very much. So I don't know, Heinz, what do you think?
The question about the carnivore diet was asked before. It's good to hear a pretty positive answer on that. I do eat vegetables, but it's raw. I don't like cooked vegetables.
Which that is music to Dr. Dansinger's ears because raw vegetables are pretty good for you, pretty good for your vascular and cardiovascular health.
Here's a thought though. I look up everything that's being said, not just by this show, but other shows. And I sort of Dr. Google. Any evidence that there's bad stuff in olive oils?
Is there any evidence that there's bad stuff in olive oils?
Like lead, cadmium, arsenic, things like that.
So
he reigns on our parade when it comes to dark chocolate because of all of those that he says are in it. So now, whereas we have our nurse practitioner, Deidre Arms, and she has her series on Wednesdays that is Ask NP Deidre. And Deidre always says, you got to eat that dark chocolate. It's packed with antioxidants. And here comes Heinz to reign in our parade. But wait a minute, in moderation, because it has these other things in it. We love you, Heinz.
So I'm not aware that there have been problems with heavy metals or other, toxins in olive oil. Are you?
I'm not at all.
No, there was a study done, but I'm not a professional when it comes to that. I just look things up just so I get a better understanding, and
yeah.
So, everything is in moderation. I realize that. So, be it meat, vegetables, whatever else, everything in moderation.
Yeah, so there's no perfect food. You can criticize almost any food in one way. There's even a little bit of saturated fat in olive oil, but apples might have some pesticides on them, or almost any food you can criticize in some way.
I just
And
apple, by the way. Thanks.
No,
I'll
and
also say
I
that.
love tomatoes, and now they're saying that lectins in tomatoes can cause you issues. So I started cleaning out I took off the skin on my tomato, and then I was cleaning out the seeds. Then someone's like, no, they just
No.
could do these sort of stories and clinical studies to create, or the stories off the clinical studies to create headlines, that it's just the small amount. I mean, if you have everything
Right.
in moderation, it's not going to be an issue. It's just, are you going to eat a full tomato diet? Probably not.
Right. It is possible in nutrition to, if you know the saying, to throw out the baby with the bathwater, which is
Yeah.
a way of saying just because something, has a slight amount of if something's 99% good and 1% bad, we don't get rid of it just because it's not perfect.
No, but it's good. But we have people like Heinz and Douglas and the rest of our crew. We have Julie and Beth here and Mike here, all in our live studio audience. And, we all come together, and it's good that everyone's here to ask questions, because that's what you have to do. And then ultimately you can take all the information that comes to you and make the best decision in conjunction with your healthcare team. But final thoughts, Dr. Dansinger, you rained on our parade with this whole, we thought we were going to be able to eat Popeye's fried chicken and French fries from Steak and Shake, but you're not going to tell us to go.
So the good news is we know a lot about nutrition, what is healthy, and fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains in moderation, keeping our calories under control, and enjoying unhealthy treats just for special occasions. Staying away from processed foods that have lots of ingredients that are made in factories and we find them in cans and bottles and jars. We've got a pretty good idea about what